Some of you are exhausted, not because life is attacking you, but because you keep searching for a way around the very thing life is trying to grow you through. You want confidence, but you're trying to avoid discomfort. You want growth, but you're trying to avoid pressure. You actually made a decision, not a choice to have transformation, but you are trying to avoid the process that actually creates it. One of the hardest lessons life will ever teach you is this. Sometimes the only way forward is through it. I'm ED. For all you smart and intelligent folks out there, hey, listen, that just simply means that I am the leadership storyteller. And this is where pressure, leadership, growth, and real world experiences become lessons you can actually, I do mean actually use in real life. You know what's interesting about pressure, discomfort, and rejection? And actually being counted out? It forces you into a decision mentality. You either start believing life is happening for you or against you. And if I can be completely transparent with you with no judgment, I've been on both sides of that conversation internally. I've had moments where the pressure felt so heavy that I started questioning everything. And I do mean everything, not trying, doing. See, because there's a big difference. I'm talking about the moments where you already put in the work, you sacrifice, you study, you stay disciplined, you actually make the decision to keep showing up, but somehow, some way, you still hear you're not good enough. You still hear you're not ready. I'm not sure you can lead effectively. You still need more experience. And after hearing enough of that, especially when you know how much work you've already put in, it can mentally break people if they're not careful. I know because I've actually felt that pressure personally. But eventually something shifts mentally. And honestly, this is the conversation that excites me the most because eventually I stopped hearing doubt as rejection and I started hearing it as an invitation to build. Oh, you don't believe in me? Great. Here's another problem to solve. You don't trust me? Perfect. Here's another opportunity to win. See, you're not sure I can lead effectively. Oh, thank God. Now it's time to actually get to work, not to impress doubters, to impress myself. And if we're being transparent, that shift changed my life because I realized I should not need pressure to start building. I should have already been building. That mentality reminded me of the story of Kobe Bryant when he talked about being at the basketball camp and other kids were calling him weak because he grew up in the suburbs. Now most people would have gotten emotional, but not Kobe. He responded differently. When everybody went to lunch, he went to practice. And see, psychologically, that created pressure on everybody else because now they had a decision to make. Do we keep relaxing and eating this good food or do we chase the person who is still working? See that mindset? Oh man, that hits differently. And now you're in a position where you're thinking differently. That's how I started viewing pressure differently in my own life because pressure can either emotionally destroy you or sharpen you. That's also how I view certifications like the PMP and CAPM differently than most people. If I ask somebody, why do you want the PMP or the CAPM? And the answer has nothing to do with, well, becoming mentally stronger, improving financially, developing discipline, or sharpening my craft, I honestly question the motivation. Because yes, I understand that not every page on the PMBOK gets used daily. That is why it's called a standard guide. But the real value is not only the information. See, it's what you become while learning it. It's the discipline. It's the focus. It's the consistency. It's the problem solving. Matter of fact, it's just the mental endurance if we're just being honest. And yeah, well, the financial side does matter too, because the reality is some organizations will not even look at your resume without certain certification. That is the truth. But more importantly, the process teaches you how to push through difficulty, even when progress feels uncomfortable. And eventually I realized that's the real lesson. The only way through growth is actually through it. Principle number one, pressure forces you into a mental decision. So one of the most important things about what pressure does is it forces you into an eternal conversation with yourself because eventually difficult seasons make you choose. No. They make you make a decision. Do you believe if life is actually happening for you or against you? And honestly, that decision changes everything. Some people experience rejection and emotionally collapse. Others experience rejection and become sharper, more disciplined, and more focused. That pressure itself is not always what destroys people. Sometimes it's the meaning they attach to the pressure because once people start believing every setback means, oh, I guess I'm not good enough, I'll never make it. What's the point of even doing this? They slowly stop building together. But once people begin viewing pressure as preparation instead of punishment, their mindset, well, I don't know about you, but it does shift. And see, that mindset shift can completely transform how they approach leadership, growth, failure, and consistency. And most of all, my favorite, adversity. Here's two actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Pay attention to the language you use during difficult seasons. Next one. Stop automatically interpreting discomfort as evidence that you are failing. Why is this important? The internal conversation people have during difficult seasons often determine whether they grow or emotionally surrender because pressure magnifies mindset. Eventually, people either become stronger through adversity or become trapped by the meaning they assign to it. Here's my professional advice, family. Pressure does not always arrive to destroy confidence. Sometimes it arrives to expose how strong you are capable of becoming. Again, sometimes it arrives to expose how strong you are capable of becoming. But eventually, pressure alone is not enough. At some point, discomfort has to become fuel. Principle number 2, discomfort can become fuel. One of the biggest mindset shifts in my life that has happened when I stopped viewing doubt, rejection, and discomfort as emotional attacks and start viewing them as invitations to build, that changed everything. Because instead of emotionally folding every time life became difficult, I started asking, what can this teach me? How can this sharpen me? What skills do I need to actually develop this? And honestly, that's where growth begins because that when life is easy. But when people stop asking or allowing discomfort to emotionally paralyze them, that's why the Kobe Bryant story hits differently because everybody else was relaxed during lunch, but Kobe kept working. And psychologically, that creates pressure because discipline forces other people to confront their own level of commitment. And that's the difference between wanting success emotionally and pursuing growth intentionally. Because eventually, discomfort becomes fuel for people who decided to keep building anyway. Here's 2 actionable tips I'd love for you to experiment with. Use criticism and doubt as motivation to sharpen your preparation instead of emotionally shutting down. Next one, build routines that continue even when motivation disappears. Why is this important? People who learn how to use discomfort as fuel often develop stronger discipline, stronger confidence, emotional endurance, higher standards, and long-term consistency. Let's be honest. When you stop waiting for the perfect environment, the perfect conditions, you realize that it's just better just to go ahead and execute anyway. So here's my professional advice. Highly disciplined people are not always more talented. I'll even remix that. Highly focused people are not always the most talented. They are often the more emotionally committed to growth. And eventually, the people who keep building through discomfort begin realizing something powerful about growth itself. Principle number 3, growth changes who you become. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about growth is believing that reward is only external. You know, the title, the certifications, the promotion, the money. Okay, let's be real. Those are really great. But honestly, some of the greatest value comes from who you become during the process. That's why I do certifications like the PMP and CAPM differently. Yes, the financial opportunities matter. Yes, the credential matter. But let's dig deeper and look at the value, the discipline, the confidence, learning how to solve, learning how to stay with it long enough when you worked your job today and now you have to pick up that CAPM book to study or that PMP book to study, or now you have to watch another video or go over the content outline, or now you have to join your class for another 2 or 3 hour session where you're going over questions. See, that transformation is what I was looking for. That transformation is what I'm telling you about today because a lot of people don't understand that value. I understand that it's about getting the certification. I'm big on it. And I preach that to the mountaintop. But again, the growth that you are able to obtain from it is so much bigger. Here's my actionable tips I love for you to experiment with. Measure growth by who you are becoming, not only by the immediate results. Next one, pursue goals that strengthen both your mindset and your opportunity. Why does this even matter? Let me tell you why this is important. People who only focus on external rewards often quit when progress feels emotionally difficult. Let me park here too. I want to say this. I've been guilty of this. I am still guilty of this if I'm being honest with you. How can I say that? Because we can get so caught up in the external rewards. Oh, look what's going to happen if I continue to do this, and it's not happening the way that I thought it could happen. But if I'm being honest with you though, which I hope that that's what you're here for, when I stopped paying attention to those external rewards, meaning they were in sight, but I still kept my head down and stayed focused. I kept my head down and stayed disciplined. I kept my head down and kept trusting the process. I kept my head down and kept believing in my faith. I am just letting you know this is an endurance game. A lot of people start. A lot of people start, but few finish. Why is that? That is the question that has troubled my soul. That is the question that has challenged me. That is the question that has made me think, why do a lot of people start and a lot of people, well, few, I should say, never fit? It's about identity. Here's my professional advice. Some of the most valuable things you gain through difficult seasons cannot be measured on paper. Confidence, resilience, discipline, perspective. Those are earned internally. And maybe that's the real reason some of the strongest versions of ourselves are built during those seasons we almost gave up. Here's the truth, family. I get it. You're listening to me now. You're probably working on something that you want to build or you thought about building. You're thinking about the sacrifices that you've already made and you haven't seen the outcome. I get it. But internally, you're fighting thoughts like these. What if I'm still not enough? What if this never works? What if all of this effort still doesn't change my life? I understand that and I feel that so deeply because I've had moments where the pressure almost convinced me, man, they didn't even have to convince me. I was ready to stop building too. But eventually I realized something powerful. Pressure does not always arrive to destroy you. Sometimes it arrives to develop the version of you that the future actually requires. That's why I stopped asking, why is this not happening for me? And started asking, what is this trying to build inside of me? Because eventually, discomfort builds endurance, discipline builds confidence, consistency builds identity, and pressure builds leadership. And maybe, just maybe, that's why some people quit too early, because transformation rarely feels rewarding while it's in motion. But if you keep building, if you keep learning, if you keep sharpening your craft and keep showing up, eventually, maybe you have an opportunity. Maybe you'll have a shot to become somebody pressure could no longer easily break. Continue to build anyway. Here's my final. Maybe that's the real shift. The moment you stop asking pressure to leave your life and start allowing it to actually build a version of your future that you've been waiting for. I've understand it. Matter of fact, I've lived it. I honestly get it. And I'm still living it. But build anyway.